Everyone?
Morning.
Oh wow, you guys need to wake up. Good morning.
Morning.
Perfect. Welcome to another lecture. Today our lecture is going to be done by our friend Tiago. He's going to talk about our role in the universe. Good morning for those who join us online as well. And as always, before we start, Patrick is going to do the initial reading and prayer for us.
Good morning. So we will read from the book Happy Life from Divaldo Franco and from the spirit of Luana de Angelis. Listen calmly whenever you are invited to do so. Let the other person complete his thought. Do not jump to certainly incorrect conclusions. Not everyone can express himself quickly or clearly. So listen cheerfully, ignore mistreatments and poor choices of words in order to understand what the other is trying to say. If someone accuses you, search for the root of wrongdoing and get rid of it. Dialogue should always happen without bitterness, leaving a positive balance. If he clarifies something for you or teaches you something, absorb the lesson. If he is blaming someone, listen the intensity of the offense with expression of comfort to the offended party. So now let's close our eyes, elevate our thoughts to our Master Jesus, thank for the opportunity to be here another week, to have this lesson, to get all that we can learn here today together. Ask the good spirits to bless our friend Tiago, that he will be giving us the lesson today. And so be it.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Now, I like that. Not so agitated or serene. Thank you for coming. I'm very happy to be here today with all of you. And like always, we are here to learn together. We are here to reflect about some of the lessons that Spiritism gives us. Every time that I am invited for a lecture, there are usually themes. And the theme of today is very important, somewhat vast, but we will try to ground ourselves because a title like that, our role in the universe, seems to be so wide, right? That there is so much there, and we need to find a path. And the path that we find here always is, what does Spiritism teach us about us, about our role in the universe, and also about what is the understanding of the universe for us? What do we understand about this vast space that we have surrounding all of us? Are there limits? Are we supposed to be only on this earth? Is the universe created just for us to admire, like we admire the eclipse a couple of weeks? For those who were lucky, for those who were not, the clouds that were there for us to admire, which is always beautiful as well, not the same. And also, I always appreciate the fact that Spiritism is Christianism. And Christianism is all the teachings that we have from the Old to the New Testament. And we can make sense. Spiritism is the key that helps us to unlock meaning from all those lessons. We can look at those lessons and make sense of them today. And Spiritism helps us. Specifically when we think about the universe. The first thing that comes to my mind is something ambitious to talk about, but it makes me think about the creation. When we talk about the universe, we talk about how was this universe created and what for? What is the source for us to try to understand that? Well, we can look at NASA, astronomy, we can look at the Hubble, we can look at James Webb telescope, which is actually a very good source today of understanding of the universe. And at the same time, we understand the universe in a much more symbolic way, which is the best way that we can understand for us here in Spiritism. That role in the universe has to do with the teachings that we received from the beginning of the Old Testament. It is one of the most beautiful symbols of the creation of the universe for all of us. I will just apologize because I'm trying to open my notes here. I was successful. So, the book of Genesis starts just like that. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And I dared to put here the Hebrew version of that first sentence of the book of Genesis. And I'm doing that on purpose. And we will try to understand at the very end if we make sense, if there is any meaning, that specific phrase that has been written in Hebrew. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Most modern scholars today, including some scholars that understand and study and help us to make sense in Spiritism of the old scriptures, will tell us something very curious. If we just listen to that phrase, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Well, the first thing that we will imagine is, well, God created. And this is true. God is the source of all creation. What is curious about it? It is one little word here, which is Elohim. Elohim is a plural word. And it says gods. It's a very interesting choice of word. So, would that change the meaning? In the beginning, the gods created heavens and the earth. Not only that, remember, we are looking, when we say God created heavens and the earth, of several different translations, going from language to language, adapting meaning. But if we go back, first of all, the word Elohim is plural. And also, because of my ignorance, I'm sorry, but I cannot identify exactly the word there. But when we talk about created, in fact, the original word was formed. As if we take a piece of clay and we start giving shape to it. Now, like always, I ask myself, and you have every single right to ask me, Thiago, why are you telling us that? And what does that have to do with the lecture today? Bear with me. If we try to understand the origins of this beautiful story, this beautiful poetry, this beautiful symbol of creation, the gods formed the heavens and the earth. Let's keep that in mind. It doesn't take away God's creations, abilities, but also changes a little bit the meaning for us to understand us, to understand what we were created for, and also understand the elements that comprise the universe that we know today. Let's think for a minute. What is today the observable universe? Let's just try to let ourselves, absorb a little bit. What do we understand today in 2024 about the universe from our human perspective? We are looking at something very difficult to grasp. There are numbers that I was acquainted with that I cannot even describe. There are mathematical, physical numbers that are absolutely impossible for me to make sense. But we can bring a few numbers that will help us to understand. We understand today, based on the latest researches and observations from the most advanced machines that humans could have created today, that the universe is about 13.78 billion years since the advent of the Big Bang. More than that, it was thought until a few years ago that the Big Bang was the origin of everything. And today there are theories trying to reflect about the Big Bang might not have been even the beginning. We are looking at almost 14 billion years. Our Earth is what? 4.5, 4.6 billion years. But the age of the universe, as we know, may be even older. Again, we are looking at human perspective. We have approximately 200 billion galaxies. Remember the galaxy, the Milky Way, when we look at the sky. All that infinity of stars that we can see at night if we're not in Toronto. We can measure today 200 billions of them, just like the Milky Way, some smaller, some larger. Sometimes passing 1,000 of something, I cannot make much sense. Put a bowl of rice in front of me, I will understand how many. More than that is difficult. We're talking about 200 billion galaxies, each one of them with billions of planets like ours. Other many, many billions. When we look back a little bit in this image, that is the picture of the observable universe in a mathematical construction. And if we look at the diameter, from one edge to the following here, if we are to travel that distance from one edge to the other of the observable universe, it will take 93 billion light years. Let's remember, 1 light year, right? It is, if we think about the speed of the light, 300,000 kilometers a second. The light takes approximately 8 minutes to travel from the sun to Earth. 8 minutes. And today, we could not travel to the sun. The machines that go there go very fast, faster than even we can handle traveling. We are looking at 93 billion years if we are light. Why am I doing that? Just to make everybody have a headache? No. It is very important for us to make sense of the undescribable immensity that is that universe. It is important for us to understand that whatever measure that we have, it is important for us to be open for everything that goes beyond. When we look at creation and we look at 6 days in the book of Genesis, we are looking at a symbol. Those 6 days represent very specific events in the time of our universe, in the time of our lives as humans that are important for us. In the first day or the first era of the creation of the material life that we know today. So then finally, the first organisms start to become something in this planet. Until the 6th day, when finally God creates humans. What we call Adam and Eve, which is basically the symbol for humanity. There are eras, billions and billions and billions of years for all of that. Again, the question remains, what for? What for? I'm not even going in that last number because it became too much already. I would just leave it there. And I never heard of this word before, 1 septillion. Right? It is 1 followed by 24 zeros. How many stars are in the universe? So, let's then come back. Allow ourselves to try to make sense of all those numbers that we are trying to make sense. And then we go back to Spiritism to try to give us some meaning that will be relevant for the studies today. Allan Kardec obviously will ask about the universe. And the very question that Allan Kardec asks is the universe space finite or infinite? Which is a very good question. Remember, we are talking about the observable universe. But the spirits will be very, very clear. The universe is infinite. And not only that, they will continue telling us, if it had limit, what will be after that limit? What will happen after that? Not only that, I didn't put there, but the spirits will tell us, you will never be able to comprehend it from your tiny sphere of thinking. That is the end of that explanation. Because us, as humans, in our level of evolution, are still not able to grasp the full extent of what the universe is. And not only that, we live a very cyclic life, right? We are born, we grow, we develop, like in the biology classes that we learn, right? We reproduce, we mature, and then our bodies start a process of decay, and then we die. And then when we die, the elements that comprise us will be back to the nature, and we will restart that process. So we live this cyclic life. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end for us. So for us to break the conception of something that is finite, to the conception of the infinite is very difficult. But the spirits are very good with us. They are very good, and they tell us what matters is respect that and take advantage of all that infinite space that has been given to you, because you are here for a reason. And they are good to us. They tell us, don't try to occupy yourselves too much. In the same way that they told us, don't try to occupy yourselves too much on understanding what God is. We can only understand by some of God's attributes. We cannot see God. We cannot hear God. We still don't have the conception of pure spirit for us. Everything is mediated by matter. Everything that we do, everything that we understand, everything that we have a relationship with must be mediated by our material life. Even our thoughts. Today, in our earth, we need the brain to make the thoughts travel through the neurons and the synapses and give quality to those thoughts, which is our emotions. And in many ways, when we are living in this material life, even though we understand that the spirit is the source of all of that, matter mediates everything for us. Okay, bear with me. Let's continue. After we look at this universe, after we look at an infinite space with no void, with no nothingness within it. Today we know that most of what we see that is, empty space, the physicists, the astronomers will call what? The dark matter. So that is something measurable as well. It is still something. And then there is us. I think for this picture, it doesn't make justice, right? We're too big for this picture. After thinking about the universe, we're too big there. But here we are, within this universe, occupying one of the 200 billion galaxies that are observable to us, circulating around one of the 1 septillion stars in this universe that is observable. One among 8 planets surrounding that specific star. That is our sun. That is us. Why are we here? What is the purpose of our existence here? Would that series of almost infinite mutations that happened, that Darwin told us about, have any meaning but simply chance? Are we so similar to each other because of coincidence? Why are we here? What is the purpose of our existence in this universe? Let's understand who we are, or what we are. That's the most important thing. Who we are, I am Thiago. You are who you are, but what are we? And here in Spiritism, we understand we are a spirit. And what is the spirit? The question is there, and the answer is there as well. The spirit is the intelligent being of the universe. This is one of the first questions in the Spirit's book. And here we are already talking about the universe. That thing becomes each day, each moment, more relevant for us. It is not as vast as we thought 10 minutes ago. We start bringing all of that in relationship to our existence. We are the intelligent principle of the universe. Is there something else? Yes. There is the material principle. What creates everything that we need to relate with. We are the intelligent principle. And remember, when we are incarnated, or when we are in this material body, that's what the Spiritism would say. We are a soul. And when we depart from this material life, in this material body, we are back being a spirit. And in the item 79, there is a little more explanation, which is spirits are the individualization of the intelligent principle. For now, suffice to us to understand, God creates the intelligent principle and the material principle, and extracts from that intelligent principle a prototype of individual. And this will be us. We are created to be individualized, to be one, or we can say to be our own universe. Are we created in that shape and form? Were we created 100 years ago? Were we created as spirits when we were born? No. We were created, as Spiritism will tell us, simple and ignorant, tending to perfection. Simple and ignorant, but capable of learning everything and growing to be as perfect as we are capable of. And in this process of growth as spirits, what we call evolution, in this process of spiritual evolution, we go through specific stages or phases that Spiritism helped us to understand through talking about the progression, right? And then it will give us a few categories for us to understand. Those categories are also important because depending where we are in this process of evolution, we have a function, we have a purpose, we have our potentials, and we have a role to occupy. First of all, let's think about have some spirits been created good and others evil? Let's try to deepen a little bit that idea of how we were created simple and ignorant. The spirits will tell us that God has not created us good or evil, but has created us without any knowledge. And it is up to us to develop the knowledge about everything. God has given each one of us a mission, tasks, roles, functions. Those missions or those roles are aimed at enlightening us, progressively leading us towards perfection through the knowledge of the truth in order to draw us near to God. And it is not difficult to deduce from all of that we have said that we are not meant to be stagnant. There is only one direction of progression of spirits, which is forward. Even though we may believe sometimes that we may have, downgraded in different ways, especially when we study a little bit about reincarnation. which is the, progressive occupation of our spirits in a body, in our material life, the different existences that we occupy throughout time. And then we progress through those experiences and through those incarnations. Many times we would say we may come back in a lower social position than before, or with more problems or challenges than before. But this doesn't mean that our spirits are regressing. It means that our spirits are progressing through challenges that are given to us for us to learn the natural consequences of our actions and how we are occupying the life that we are occupying. What is the use that we are making of the concessions that we are being given today? And here is the question that is one of the most relevant for our reflections today. What is the purpose of the incarnation of spirits then? What is the purpose of us being here? And the spirits will clearly say, God imposes the incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. And we're going to talk about perfection in a minute. We're going to talk about that process of evolution leading to perfection. So if our purpose is to perfect ourselves, there must be something there, right? If today we were created and we have a mission, therefore, if our goal is to be led towards perfection, there is a role for us in perfecting ourselves and in reaching the finish line. What is going to happen with us? Are we going to be seated on top of that cloud that was blocking the eclipse and singing praises to God? Not necessarily. There is much more for us to do. More we perfect ourselves, more tasks we receive. We can deduce that in our own lives. Every time that we resolve a problem, every time that we solve a problem, what happens? We get to solve. And when we think that after solving those two, oh my gosh, it feels so good, God gave me my quota, right? I finished those two. And then God, using mathematics, will give us 4, not 3. And from 4 will give us 16, and so on and so forth. Every time that we perfect ourselves in something, we are given more. If we become specialists in solving problems, what is the best thing that we can do with that knowledge? Solve more problems and solve more complicated problems and solve them to another degree of solution. Because we are more than only that material life, that material being, that every time that we solve a problem, we need to give ourselves a very long vacation to enjoy. Our purpose is to perfect ourselves. Perfecting ourselves leads us to use that knowledge and that potential and those qualities and those characteristics for betterment, our betterment, other people's betterments as well. So let's think very quickly about that progression of spirits. This is important for us. When we still barely can solve one problem, and most of the time when we don't care much about the problems, when we are still not too serious as spirits to really understand the meaning of our existences, the spirits will tell us that we belong to this third order that is called imperfect spirits. What does that mean, to be imperfect? We can just have a chat, put a circle and we talk about our challenges in life. That's more or less what it is. We have challenges. We have challenges of the material life that are very, very difficult many times for us. because our relationship with matter is still very strong. That is the matter of imperfection. Imperfection, not in terms of negativity, but in terms of a lower degree of evolution. Therefore, less spirit, more matter. That's us if we are imperfect. Our relationship with matter is more important than our relationship with the spiritual things, the spiritual life, the spiritual subjects. Okay? Usually, there is more instinct, there is more animality, there is something that brings us closer to our lives as a species than our lives as beings of creation. Those are the imperfect spirits. Then we progress. We understand a little more. We fight those instincts. We don't act as much from the point of view of the automatism that is characteristic of animals. And we continue evolving. Sigmund Freud, the brilliant psychoanalyst, tells us that by the moment that a human cast a word instead of a rock, civilization was able to exist. That is very true here. When we are able to use more our reason, when we are able to intellectualize ourselves, when we are able to understand life more from the point of view of the intelligence than from the point of view of instinct and materiality, we then have another very important process of evolution. Suddenly we become better as spirits. And then we progress towards being good spirits, where spirit is more prevalent than matter. Does that mean that we are not living a material life? No. But it means that we start making sense that the material life is not permanent. We start understanding that the material life is a temporary state. And that as spirits, we will continue moving on. What we have today, the possessions, the place in society, the wealth, the recognition that we have, even the intelligence that we have, this will all pass. And what is important for us is not to attach ourselves too much to it, but to use that and put in perspective that one day we will leave that behind towards different experiences that are more relevant for our spirit in evolution. And then, finally, we go to the first order. Those are called the pure spirits. Those are the messengers, the ministers of God. When we become pure spirits, we spiritualize ourselves to a point that we can establish a more direct relationship with God, which we cannot today, because our material senses, our material life, our link with material things blocks us from acquiring that perception of spirit, full spirit. Of course, that you can ask me, so then what can we do? We're getting there. There's somebody that is helping us a lot to understand how to progress through those stages. We're not going to be left alone, just to understand which stairs we're going to take. That is a path. And, well, here we are again. I went too fast, maybe. And we also need to look at something that is called the solidarity among all things. We're talking about ourselves. We're talking about different orders of spirits. We're talking about different planets and galaxies and stars in this universe. But the reality is everything is intertwined linked, working in harmony for our existence to make sense, and for us to take advantage of all of that that has been created. And there is that passage is from the book Genesis, from Allan Kardec. We can deduce the solidarity between matter and intelligence among beings of one world and all the worlds, and finally all creations and the creation and the creator. When we look at the purpose that we have, we are looking at a very harmonious system. And we being integral part of that system, we have a very important place to occupy. And it is important for us to take that place seriously, because God would not have created an infinite universe and placed us occupying the various worlds in this universe for nothing. We, at the same time that we need to act towards each other with humility, it is important that we understand that we have an important place in this universe. Being humble doesn't mean put ourselves in a lower position that we are. This is not humility. This is not humbleness. We, as humble beings, must understand exactly what is the place that we occupy in this universe. And if we don't take that place seriously, chances are we are not doing our part. And that process of evolution will take much longer for us. And we will need to repeat the lessons until we finally get it. And then when we finally get the lessons, what is going to be the practice? Doing this over and over and over and over. And then we move to different stages. The universe is here with all its dwelling places. And we are here occupying one of them. And we will likely occupy other dwelling places in this universe as spirits in evolution. And it is important to understand that we are here in the best incarnation, in the best moment of our existences as beings of creation, and it is important to take this place seriously. And here it comes one of the most interesting explanations of the role that we occupy in this universe. If we go back to the book of Genesis, when God creates men and women or humans, God says, the book says, God created them in their image. Like God created humans in their image, in their similitude. It's like God created humans in the image of God. What would that mean? Did God create us to look like God or to appear like God? Symbolically speaking, and based on the language back then, God created every single being towards being in communion with God. The idea of being with God or being like, God, it is to be with God in communion. That is the meaning of we were created in the image of God. We will be able to identify ourselves with the divinity. We will not become the divinity, but we will be able to identify ourselves. We will be able to enter in communion with the divinity. That is our potential as spirits. And in this book, the Spirit and Relics will tell us something very, very important. He will give us a kind of condensation of that classification of spirits, of third and second and first order. He will put those two orders, the third and the second, in something called co-creation in a lower plane. And then he will talk about the first order of spirits, which is the pure spirits, as the co-creation in a larger plane. Let's try to understand this a little bit. Oh, not yet. It is already a little spoiler alert, right? He's here. He's not here. He's here. Co-creation in a larger plan. The Spirit and Reluis will tell us that when a spirit reaches the perfection that a spirit is allowed, which means that when they become a pure spirit, they enter in a specific kind of relationship with God, with communion with God, that allows the spirits to receive directly the messages, the desires, the will of God, and being able to execute them. They are the direct executors of the will of God in the universe. Okay. God is spirit. God is pure spirit. God doesn't have any materiality. God, beyond creating the spirits and the fundamental principles that make everything exist, God needs those executors to make his will gain shape and form. Take the principles and being able to transform them in the universe that we know. Is there anybody that we know that could be one of those representatives that is in constant direct communion with God, that executes God's will, making sure that whatever is given to this being, to this pure spirit, is relevant for us? Do we know any of those spirits?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, we do. This spirit that we know is Jesus. Jesus is the spirit of that first order that came to us, lived among us, but actually has a much more important role in our lives. He is what we call a Christ. And that Christ is one of the spirits of the highest order that directly relate with God, executing his will. It is known by Spiritism that Jesus not only governs our entire planet and guides all its inhabitants, but Jesus was responsible for the formation of our planet. And when we think about that formation, we think about from the very beginning, more than 5 billion years ago. Which means, just to give us a little taste of a pure spirit, if Jesus received the task to form this earth for all of us to continue progressing, that means that 5 billion years ago, Jesus was already very, very much pure. That we are not talking about somebody that is just writing essays about biochemistry and the formation of geology. No, we're talking about a spirit in what André Luiz would say, indescribable communion with the Creator. Responsible for today 8 billion spirits that are incarnated. And we know that if we are 8 billion spirits that are incarnated, let's probably multiply this by 3 that are discarnated. 8 times 3, 24, plus 8, more than 30 billion spirits occupying this earth and its surroundings in the spiritual world, directly under the responsibility of Jesus. Jesus has a very, but very important role in this universe. And when Jesus tells us that we can be like him and more, because Jesus told us you can be even more. If you have faith, you will do this. And when he was doing his miracles, he said, you can do this and more. He was telling us, you are also in this path. But he's also telling us, for us to leave that place of a co-creator in lower plane, raising our children, having 2, 3, first 50 years ago, 15, 16, 17. Or if we have a business that we have hundreds or thousands of people under our responsibility. And if we are a governance, that we have millions of people that rely on our decisions. And if we are the messengers and the guides that we had throughout history, like Gandhi, like Buddha, like Muhammad, that were responsible for millions, if not billions, of beings in their path of spiritual enlightenment. He's telling us we are in this path. Okay, but what can we do? We cannot do much today. Yes, you can. Today, if we receive those who are under our care, we do care. If we have a responsibility for those who need opportunities that we are to be, that are to be given by us, we will do that. If we are to manage wealth to be distributed among people, we will do that well. And that's what we call all of this that Jesus told us a long time ago to many of his followers that were sitting down around him on top of a mountain. And then he told us, do that with simplicity. Do that with resignation. Do that in peace. merciful, with being merciful, being righteous, with justice, loving, forgiving, respecting, tolerating, listening, letting go intelligently. That is the way for us to continue occupying our roles in that universe, migrating from being co-creators in lower plane to one day become a co-creator in higher plane or larger plane. Jesus told us in many different ways, you are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine. Use all that you have today. Occupy that role in this universe. Let shine your light before others. Don't hide your potential to become a co-creator, being created in the likeness of God. In the likeness of God. God is the creator. If we were created in the likeness of God, we are what? Co-creators. Co-creators. And the reason why I brought that very first phrase is because everywhere in those lessons we have the path to understand our role. Because when Moses dictated the Genesis, and he says, in the beginning, the gods formed the heavens and the earth. He knew that we had the potential of co-creation. Therefore, we are potentially gods. We are the seeds of Elohim. We are the seeds of the beings that one day will be in indescribable communion with God. And if today, even though immersed in matter, in difficulties that are very mundane, we still receive through his messengers the directions, the guidance on how to conduct ourselves better. It's because we have the potential to, in spiritualizing ourselves, we will enter in more and more intimate communion with God, to one day being able to co-create in a larger plane with God. That is our role in our universe. Thank you very much. So, yes, that is one more slide,
Can you press
which is this one.
the other screen? Yeah.
You're going to explain that.
Yes. So first, thank you, Chi. This was very enlightening, a lot to think about it. Do we have any comments or questions? No, you're all reflecting about God managing 100 couple people and then complaining about the 17 you have to manage on the day-to-day. Yeah, it made me feel like a little grain of salt.
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Chi. Thank you for those who joined us online. Hope to see you guys next week. Have a lovely weekend. And just to explain, so we are getting a little bit more technological. So for those who wants to become a member, Eve was grateful enough to create us a QR code. So now everything is online. It's a lot easier than filling out a paper or letting us type everything. So please scan the code and register yourself. And if you have any questions, please come and talk to one of the volunteers. For those online, you can try to do the same, or you can just send us an email and we'll help you out. All right, so here we'll get ready for our classes.